Hi guys, uh, welcome to the Mindscreen Masterclass webinar. How are all of you guys? I know it's on a Sunday and all of you have come together and we got a very interesting, can I say, program lined up. And I would like to introduce myself. I'm Rajiv Menon. I'm a practicing cinematographer and I actually teach at the Mindscreen Film Institute. So I welcome all of you to this webinar. And I would like to first introduce one of our most important people that we have on board, which is our Dean, Mr. Uh, MNG. And MNG, as we call him, is Mr. Gnanasekaran. And Mr. Gnanasekaran is the Dean of the Mindscreen Film Institute. He's an alumnus of the Film and Television Institute of Tamil Nadu. He's both taught and he is also, studied there. And he went on to shoot one of the cult classics in Tamil cinema called Avala Padidan. It has the great Kamala Hassan and Sri Priya and Rajinikanth, and it was directed by Rudraya. And he got, for his first film, the State Best Award for Cinematography. After that, he has gone on to being in the Doordarshan and then went to work in Sriharikota for years as a cinematographer. But during his tenure, as a short tenure as a teacher in the Mindscreen Film Institute, I was one of the few people privileged to have studied under him, and I greatly loved his scientific approach to teaching and the joy and passion that he brought in. So we were desperate to bring him back as a teacher and head the cinematography department here. And he's been doing a fantastic job and he's been mentoring a whole lot of cinematographers. And one of them that I would like to introduce you is our star of the day, Niketh Bommi. So Niketh, great to see you. It's nice to have you. I think you have to, Niketh, as you know, was an engineer and he studied engineering, and then he joined Mindscreen Film Institute because he had a kind of passion for cinematography. And we're going to hear a lot about him. And he studied here and also went to USA. And after working there, he relocated to India. And he worked on a wide range of content, from Putchatti to, the Telugu film industry. And, he made breakthrough films like U-Turn and Nagaram, what do you call it? E
Nagaraniki Mayindi.
Yeah, E Nagaraniki Mayindi. And that's something he's very close to. It means a lot to him and his heart. And most importantly, he has won a lot of critical acclaim for Sura Report. And I think we're going to discuss all that and what was his experience, what were his influences, how did he manage to join the Mindscreen Film Institute and what were his journey. All these things we're going to go through. And so let me first welcome him and Mr. MNG onto this program. And well, MNG has a lot of stories about him during his institute days, and I will hand over to MNG. How was Niketh as a student?
Hi, Niketh.
Hello, sir. How is
Hello,
it going?
all parties.
So
you have
cool
come
to be part
into
of this
live
whole
life now.
Thank you, sir.
Let us remember how you spent your time in the Mindscreen Film Institute. I still remember the question what I asked you when you attended for the interview. And you said the purpose for which was joining here is to prepare yourself for taking up the higher studies in US.
Sir.
So same thing. After completing, I remember we went there, and I also given a recommendation letter also for that. I remember it. But what surprised me was that you did not fully complete that course, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you tell? What is the reason for it?
So quite frankly, first of all, I was never interested in films per se, but then I just wanted to learn the technical aspects of cinematography and how you get such a beautiful image. And I thought I can make my work look better because I had a small company called Runway 9 Productions, and I used to make corporate videos and promo videos, and something small. So then definitely Mindscreen was like proper eye opener for me. Learned all the basics, all the technical knowledge from this thing, Gnanasekaran sir and Rajiv sir, and yeah, a couple of other faculty as well. And once I went to US, I think it was a repetition of the same stuff. It's nothing new. It's the same stuff they were trying to teach me. I mean, teach the other students as well. But then eventually, I thought, it's better to learn practically, work as an assistant, work under somebody there. That's one of the reasons why I went there, joined UCLA for a certification program. I think I studied for a good 2 or 3 months. And after that, I quit, started going to AFI, American Film Institute, and then few other film schools to work as a grip, as a scripty, as a clap boy, as anything like second AC. Any job they would give me for gas and food, I would go for it. So that's been my journey for, the higher studies.
Yeah, so nice, so nice. Can you tell me what is your travel till you got involved into Sura Reporter?
I think after I got, initially I did do a lot of short films even before I joined Mindscreen, and then I went to US, got back here. My friend called me for a feature film. It's called Kanir Anjali. We shot for 10-15 days, and then something happened with the production. It never took off after that. Started doing a lot of YouTube videos for Puchetni. I think that was the most interesting period because I got to do a lot with a lot less. That is, I was always given one very tight budget. And I think that's what kind of taught me how to, have this run and gun style of cinematography, that kind of an approach, basically. And that's the same thing I applied for my first film and the second, third, and fourth, even including Sura Reporter. So that's pretty much my journey towards films.
Look, I just, you want to remember some interesting incident that has happened in the happened in your batch here.
Which one, sir?
Anything that you remember?
I think, with the institute, you always had this kind of a free hand. After the school gets over, you would say it's up to you guys if you want to use the studio floor in the basement. It's up to you if you want to light up. So because each and every one of us, since it's a 6 months program, it's a pretty short program. You would repeatedly tell us that so that even we get a little bit more inquisitive and we do our own stuff, and that's what motivated our batch. And we were able to, if you remember, after the class, I would kind of come and ask you, can I just kind of use these lights? Can I use these lightmen? So that was a pretty interesting period for me. So post your lecture and post your theory sessions, I would kind of go down with fellow students like Pushpraj and a few others, Gohan, Vignesh. So that was fun.
You were fortunate during your period. We had been shooting everything in film only.
Yeah.
Now you are fully into digital.
True.
I also know that some 1 year back, you did some experiment in film also. And we had a lot of discussion before go for shooting. Can you tell your experience?
So you used to, I think you told me that film follows a subtractive theory and this thing digital follows an additive theory. It's like what you see is what you get with digital, and with film, it's more or less like a process, right? It's a die, so colors kind of get subtracted. So that was always interesting. It's just that I never got to shoot any film except for MFI practicals, by the way. But I really wanted to do something. I wanted to light up a scene. I wanted to treat one small, music video or something. I wanted to shoot something and see how it would translate once I get it onto the DI studio. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of conducted that exercise. But end of the day, I think I'm very comfortable with digital, and I'm happy where things are heading right now.
Now, if you are going to be given a choice,
Yeah.
You will prefer film or digital now?
I think film, I would probably go for it. I think for the nostalgia sake of it, but I think the technology is so good that even with your laptop and with a DaVinci Resolve, you can kind of achieve your film look, your 16mm look, your 8mm look. If at all I'm going to go for the film, I would go for the process and the kind of discipline that goes with it. So yeah, I remember even when I was doing the one day of shoot with just 4 cans, I remember even from the focus puller to the director, everyone would rehearse 100 times before we would actually go. I mean, rehearse a couple of times before we would actually go for an actual take. So that was interesting. And the minute the camera starts rolling, you lose a couple of frames when it starts rolling, and then you lose a couple of frames when you say cut. So that fear was always there, and I had like frequent palpitations every time you'd say roll. So yeah.
Do you
That
remember?
experience, yes, that I would do.
Do you remember the visit to the laboratory?
Oh yeah, correct.
Today, generation cannot have that opportunity.
True, that is true. But it's a boon. I mean, I would say it's good that we're moving towards digital, and I guess a lot more young filmmakers with lower budgets can actually tell the story the way they want to. So I think it's all good right now in terms of, even if you look at the A7S II, the camera you can literally pump up your ISO all the way to 12,000 or even 24,000, and you can literally see the landscape with just the moonlight. So that's stunning. I don't think anybody could ever do that with film. So
I remember 2 incidents that happened in our during our course. There was exercise, master's recreations.
oh yeah.
You remember it? Usually, people will pick up the painting as a sample image to copy it. Usually, that involves lighting that happens in interior. And you are the first person to take up the daylight. Vermeer.
Oh, yeah.
Milkmaid.
Yeah. True.
And you erected the set in the small studio here. And the entire day, we have been very busy. And we started comparing it also. Yeah. And greatly, now about 90% was matching the original painting. I have this visual. I have to touch and show you in between. And when you went for that outdoor exposing practical to Tirunelveli, so what happened? Do you remember?
So,
other than a cinematographer, what you did?
I did mostly. I think I did a lot of AD job, and that was more interesting. Trying to break down the scene, and I think that's the first time even I had an approach towards a narrative. So till then we were like completely into practicals, like how the light responds, what does a light meter do, and what is the lumens and what is the conversion and all that stuff. So the first time Mindscreen threw all the students out in the open saying, go shoot something. So and then one of us had to come out with a story, and one of us had to kind of break down the scene, and one of us had to figure out the shots, and we had so many cinematographers, so there was so much input. It was fun. It was definitely fun, the outdoor.
You are nicely trying to hide.
When me? During practicals.
You became actor, man.
Thank you.
You acted in the film.
Oh yeah, of course I did. Correct. Oh yeah, I did. We ran out of actors. What do you want me to do? It was me, Guhan, and Sneha. Yeah.
I have that visual also. If you permit, I'll show it. Otherwise,
come on, let the world see Niketh as an actor in his first visual while he's remaking Vermeer.
Oh my God, my good old thin days.
Why don't you show the visual, MNG sir? Are you ready to show?
No, I'll take some time to say it. You can continue.
So while he gets that visual, I'll probably ask you some more questions. that do when you are actually getting into pre-production as kind of stuff. So how do you really choose a script? I mean, you've worked in various kind of films. You kind of worked with in Telugu cinema. You've done a lot of different kind of films. So how do you kind of reason how you choose? Do you choose the script? Do you choose it based on the director? Or do you choose based on the genre? Or do you choose based on the scale?
To have worked with really good directors, as in I had a couple of choices initially. I think that's why it took some time for me to even get my first film started. But it's just that first of all, I look at the vibe. First, we have a general conversation where we were able to connect in, and I kind of look for a nostalgic factor also, so that I can talk about what kind of instances motivated them to pick that story and why they want to tell that story. So apart from that, if you ask me, yeah, of course, it's a combination of actor, it's a combination of production, it's a combination of all of these things. I have to look at both the commercial aspect of it and the aesthetic side. So it's all those put together is what my choice would be.
Because now your life is going to change. You got so many people approaching you for films, and what's the kind of genre that you really want to put your hand in? You know, like.
I don't think I have a genre-specific answer per se, but then I'm heavily motivated by emotions. I think I would say emotion is the main thing, a human emotion. So that's something which I can relate to, something which I can connect to. And even the motivation for my camera movement also comes from it. So I think that's more organic, because even if someone is trying to, if there's an emotional intense scene, and if there is an instance where, you know, there's very subtle emotions and that needs to be really conveyed through, conveyed visually, I would kind of maybe lean forward with the camera if I'm doing a handle, or if it's a track, if it's a dolly, then I would kind of charge in or creep in. So those are the things I usually enjoy the most. So I would say emotions is the main thing. So any kind of genre which has that intense, I would go for it.
So while you were, you know, getting an offer to shoot this big film, like Suraripotra, how did this happen? I mean, how did this project come? I mean, did you work with Sudha before? How did she choose you?
I think from one good, systematically every year I would, or once in every 2 years, I would upload my showreel on Facebook. I think that's what fetched my first job, my second movie. And the same thing happened even with Suraripotra, because I don't think Sudha even knew that I even shot some film before. So one of her ADs picked my showreel off Facebook, and I think he showed it to her. And she called me for a meeting, and then she asked me, did you by any chance do any film before? And we started talking, and then she immediately gave me the script. And she said, if you want to read it, just read it and let me know what you think about it. And she still didn't offer the film, by the way. So I was sent to the other room and I read the script, and obviously I didn't understand a few of those Madurai dialects, and I had her AD explain to me. It was fantastic, and I fell in love with it instantly. So got back into her room. I explained, you know, how I would probably want to treat this film. So, oh, that's the master recreation.
So, to come back, MNG has managed to pull out something. Can you guys believe this? This is Niketh
nice.
recreating a Vermeer painting in the basement studio of Mindscreen, and the great Mr. Dean had to go and search the catalogs over the last he's from the 10th batch, so he went right back into our system and he managed to get that. I think that would be very nostalgic for you, Niketh.
Oh yeah, because I think the studio floor is about 12 feet or 11 feet, if I'm not so sure. So getting the light high up there and trying to get a distance, because you're supposed to get some calculation we had back then. It was pretty tight, but we were able to recreate maybe about 40 to 50% of it. It was fun. It was definitely fun.
Amazing. So, so while we were going through this, the other thing that MNG sir would may have a picture of you while you were acting in one of the exercises. So, all you know, you may just turn out to be like Farhan Akhtar, acting and shooting.
Oh God.
I certainly didn't do it, but you can probably do it now, so.
Oh yeah, you were given a couple of offers back then, right? Oh damn. Yes.
Anyway, so now coming back to the choice of the script that you were doing, but I think there was something fantastic that you were mentioning, and one of the most interesting things that you were mentioning in the course of this, that you uploaded your showreel regularly on Facebook, right? And that Facebook managed to get you jobs. So right now, it's not about going your contacts, and it's not about hanging around parties. It's not about being an assistant, but actually putting your data,
putting yourself out there, putting your work out
social media, and God knows who's going to collect. So why don't you have a look at your showreel? That may be really interesting to have a look. The showreel that got Niketh Surare Potu. Why don't you look at that?
No, this is after Surare Potu. By the way.
After Surare.
Okay, I just updated recently.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
That's Gnanasekaran maybe. That's I would say my favorite.
Wonderful.
I think this was just before our film release, Surare Potu release, so I was not allowed to use anything other than the teaser shots. So that was the film experiment.
Yeah,
the 16
I could understand that. That was the film experiment. Wonderful. Oh, these images in the song were also quite magnificent.
Yeah, this is again 16 mm. Those triangular.
This was shot on 16 mm film, right?
16 mm, yeah.
Wonderful.
I've been lucky enough to shoot music videos. I think I've learned a lot from them. You get to experiment a lot more. You can go haywire with the lighting. You get to make mistakes that people might not notice, but then you tend to, because the continuity goes for a toss.
Amazing.
These are just, this I took in my garage. It was long back. This was a spec commercial for Camaro. So I just had one zoom lens and C100 or something like that. Yeah. Nice,
great.
nice.
Nice stuff, man. I think this is a very important thing for all the young cinematographers watching there, that you need to have a showreel, and it's not about hanging around for some 10 years as somebody's assistant, or being on a set, or
Definitely not.
Some assistant director. I mean, the modern day is what you're talking about, right? Having a great reel.
100%. Not only reel, I think any opportunity you get, and that's the reason why I think I would be very grateful for Puchetni and the team and the directors I met back then, because we were getting into that short form content. I don't think anyone from South India were used to short form content other than TV. But then we had to convey something, anything, humor or any kind of emotion within that 7 minutes, sometimes even 2 minutes. So trying to achieve everything packed into that was a challenge. And that taught me a lot more than, I don't know if I've worked only for one film as an assistant for about 35 days. I learned lighting stuff, yes, but then when you get to shoot by yourself, I think you learn a lot more. And you try to pack it up with a tight showreel and present it to the world. I'm pretty sure you'll get a lot more job opportunities than, saying that I've worked under someone like this, or, I think gone are the days where you don't have to say that anymore.
We have
I lost you.
yeah, I think we have we will get into discussion on Surare Portrait, and you know, when you were getting into pre-production of Surare Portrait, what was your idea? I mean, how did you choose? Because I can see you experiment a lot. You shoot 16mm film, you shoot CinemaScope, you shoot 35mm. You do various kind of things. You do large format work. How did you? What was the thought process behind you choosing what you did? And if you can tell the audience what you really chose.
So the first, I think the first brief I got from Sudha ma'am was she loves height. So any location we picked, there was an initial recce for about good 6 months before we even chose the format for the film. So we would go pick a location. If it's of low ceiling, she would be like, nope. Anything other than the house, because house practically has to be realistic. So the ceilings are a bit low. But other than that, anything to do with the office complex, any long corridors or hotels, anything with a high ceiling is what she wanted to see on frame. And that high ceiling we had, it's pretty tough to get it within that 2.35 aspect ratio. So we considered Academy aspect ratio. We considered, in between, we even considered 4:3. We were like, you know what, should we just like go random? Should we do 4:3, 1.3, that 1.33?
Yeah.
And
Academy, standard Academy format.
Yeah, so she was like, I don't think that works in the theater. Maybe on small screens, yes, but on theater, no. We'd have two huge black bands at the left and right. So then we considered even Alexa 65. So if we were going to do an IMAX release, because it's one of a kind of films. Even in script, we were like, wow, this is massive. So it would be awesome if we could get it on a large format. With not only, but I wouldn't say budget constraints, but then we had to cover a lot more. And we had to be like that run and gun style. None of these camera packages delivered that. We chose to go with, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, no, there's some tech issues going on there. Yeah, you go ahead, sir. Yeah.
So then we came up with, just maybe an Alexa Mini or a Red Dragon or XT, something which doesn't fail. Just keep shooting as much as possible. We had to knock off about 3 to 4 scenes a day. And we looked at what are the where would we be mostly projecting it? It would be in theaters. So, of course, now it released in OTT, but initially it was considered as theaters. And the most widely available projection format was aspect ratio was 2.35:1. So we kind of stuck to it. And the best one to tell that, to choose that aspect ratio was an anamorphic lens for no doubt. So that's the reason we went again with anamorphics and Alexa XT.
Are you kind of what's your ideal kind of a lens package in anamorphic? What's your kind of a wish list that you have? Like,
see, not exact. What do you mean? Like technically, you're talking about equipment ways?
No. In lenses, you have used a completely new set of lens which was not being popularly used. You pick that, sometimes people just say they want to use the most expensive lens,
Oh yeah, that way. Yeah, I get your question now. So the reason why we went with Atlas anamorphics were, one, they were not the perfect lens out there. So even when I had a call with Bartley sir, we just spoke about the lens as such, and it's like that's actually a shitty, like it's not as good as a Carl Zeiss lens. But it has its own character, there are a few defects here. There's even the, even the focus is not super crisp. It's a bit off. And even if you frame the character at, left 2/3 or the right 2/3, it's always, the focus is a bit tricky to play with. So those kind of added to our film, because our film was set in the period. And I think that gave it a unique character, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to go either with Hawk anamorphics, Hawk C primes, or with Atlas anamorphics.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, because I think the intent to tell a story is far more important than the cost and all these kind of things. I really think you have managed to do something quite revolutionary, because I find a lot of people often sort of saying that I can't shoot without a signature prime, I can't shoot without the most expensive thing, and very often it is your need to tell a definitive kind of a visual, which is more important than, just because something is more expensive or everybody is running after it, And I think that is something I really appreciated in your work, because it was, you had an authorship, you clearly were kind of putting a finger down into saying that, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to go after this kind of a visual. And that's something which sort of talks about your degree to experiment. I mean, you can tell us something more about that.
Like, I think, Gnanasekaran always used to say, Bomma varda, koilla, or so. I think I would take that. I took that pretty seriously, but then apart from it, I think anything that tells a story, I think that's more than enough. And I guess it's all about the movement. It's all about the composition. It's a bit about the lighting, the contrast you want to maintain. I don't think, even if you use the most high-end equipment, and if you're going to try to tell the same story, I don't think you'll be able to notice. So that's pretty much why I chose to go simple, and always going simple works. I believe in that.
Absolutely. So what was your idea about lighting design? I mean, did you have any kind of, when you heard the story, did you have any kind of idea that you're going to use soft light, hard light? I mean, what was your lighting design idea?
Yeah. So this was, again, purely Sudha ma'am's brief. So she was like, I'm going to get the actors on set. Mostly Surya sir is going to come without makeup. There's not going to be much makeup under the eye. We're just going to leave it as it is. So he needs to look a little bit haggard. He has to look worn out. And if I were to go with a soft light, I think I would have missed that essence. So we kind of went ahead with as much harsh light as possible. And even the harsh light, we didn't want to directly hit it on the face. We wanted to be either bounced off, if there is, hypothetically speaking, if there's a window on to my right and there's a building outside the window. So the light should be as if it's bouncing off that building and hitting my face. And we wanted that to be the highlight. And that would be pretty much whatever reflects around the room would be my key. So that was pretty much the approach we had throughout the film.
So you kind of had a realistic approach you wanted to have, or you wanted a high contrast, or what was more important when you heard the story? What is the emotion that you first felt, and how are you going to bring the emotion into your lighting?
I think there were many scenes where eyes would speak volumes. So I think eyes had to really show up. So that small glint was everything. So that's one of the reasons why I would not light the actors too much, or the face too much, or the background also not too much. I would light the background in patches, and then have a little bit of a bounce just to give a glint. And that's pretty much it. And otherwise, the rest of the scenes are pretty much normal. So that was a very normal approach.
So I think Mr. MNG has got a question for you on the pre-production work. That we'll see some visuals, and then he's going to ask you some questions.
Yes, you are fully trained for handling the continuity and short breakdown.
Yeah.
What way this has helped you in helping the production crew?
Yes, as in how you would kind of teach me to maintain the contrast, like either 1:8 or 1:16. That is something which I would constantly tell my associate Surya, Regimal Surya. So I would tell him, you know what, whatever you do, don't lose the contrast, man, especially on the close-ups. The wides, yes, we might not be able to control it that much, but on the mids and closes, that's something which we try to at least. And wherever we went a little bit haywire, I think I kind of covered up in the post. We crushed the one side of the face a bit more, and we highlighted the other one. So that's pretty much the kind of continuity. And we kept the lighting a lot more simple. We didn't add way too many lights. We just had 4 HMIs and 4 sky panels for the entire film, or for all the talkie portion. So this one particular. Is everyone able to see this image? This one is particularly on the terrace. So this, I think, even in the BTS I had mentioned. So I requested Sudha ma'am if we could roll this at 5:30. So because I just wanted that kind of a sunset light, which the bracket is just very minimal. It's about 20 minutes of that beautiful light. She's a fantastic director. She actually listened to me. I have no idea how, but she gave me that opportunity to shoot that scene between those golden 15 minutes.
It's a fact that in a lot of shots you find that it's really, really beautiful, the light, and you managed to capture the ideal light.
I would say I think I've been very lucky to have amazing actors who would essentially give me one take and they were spot on. So we would rehearse a couple of times before we get to that actual light, either morning or late evening. Even if we were ready for the scene at 3 p.m., they would rehearse a couple of times and then wait for the right sunset. And then we would roll it with it. We would can it maybe 2 takes on the wides and a couple of takes in the closes, and we were done with the scene. So it's pretty rare to get that kind of a unique team effort.
Niketh?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting to see that you had an experience of shooting in a place called Chindajiripet.
Oh, yeah.
I am from that place. The moment I saw Samaj visuals, it was appearing that my house is there in the film. It's a typical architecture.
Yeah.
Right?
So we did shoot in Chindajiripet. Initially, we were considering putting a set. Jackie sir was like ready to, he gave us a beautiful plan. And we considered a few other options. We looked at a bigger space, but then Chindajiripet was so unique because the structure was extremely weak. We had too many limitations. We couldn't take the track up. We couldn't take any heavy lights up. So everything was a lot more complicated. So what I loved and Sudha ma'am loved was these complications are good because you have to skim down on the equipment. We have to skim down on everything possible. Can have it like as much as a short film crew, 2 lights, 1 camera, roll. And the character, which, you know, those unique courtyards in between, I don't think it's that easy to recreate. So, and the walls were worn out. It was falling apart. I think it's pretty old, and all the houses are right next to each other. So so we definitely wanted to roll there. But the terrace is something which we wanted to cheat because we wanted to make it look like the house is right next to the runway. So Jackie sir came out with this amazing idea saying, you know what, we initially considered, let's shoot the terrace in Chindajiripet, let's put a green mat and replace the background with the airport runway. It was just, one, it was not practical. And 2, I think even Sudha ma'am wanted the feel of being right next to the runway. She wanted that wind, that gush of wind on the actors' faces. So Jackie sir came up with this amazing idea of putting up a 35 feet tall structure and putting a terrace on top of it. And he also made that small courtyard in between that terrace. So that's how we cheated. Chindajiripet has behind it. Yeah.
You said 35 feet. It's almost like creating a 3rd floor building, you know? That's amazing. A lot of engineering involved inside there.
Yeah, it's all Jackie sir.
Fantastic. When you are doing this film, and you had a fairly I see Surya changing his look many times. Was it shot over, how long did you shoot this film? What kind of time frame were you looking at?
We started principal photography by Feb 2019, and we finished by September 2019. So, but towards the end of the shoot is where we shot all the Air Force portion, where Surya sir had to kind of lose, I think, quite a lot. I think 14 kilos or 12 kilos or something like that. So he went through an insane transformation. So yeah, that helped, because I think I scared him by, I got some VFX done. I got some stuff done towards this side of it and reduced the chin to make him look a little bit younger. I don't think I did a good job. And he was like, nope, you know what? I'm going to do it the old school way. I'm going to lose all this weight. So yeah, he went all in for the character.
It's amazing. So how many days was the shoot?
We shot for 63 days. So it was pretty intense, 63 days.
And spread over how long? How long a period?
February to September 2019. I don't know exactly, but yeah.
We are getting some interesting questions coming up. There's somebody called Naveen Raj who's sort of telling you, how did you decide on that brown tone?
Oh yeah, that is something. Okay, fine. This is something, it has to originate from what every cinematographer, you always have these, I love slow motion. I want to shoot slow motion, or I want to do, vertigo shots, or, you'd have these small wishes as a cinematographer. And I really wanted to experiment with warm tone. And this was a perfect project for it, because all the costumes are muted in colors. Most of the costumes, at least, are muted in color. And every location we picked were already aged. They were desaturated. This was the only film where I could kind of, put a little bit red in the skin and kind of desaturate the back, or lift the shadows all the way to a little bit reddish, push everything to red, basically, and still get a decent image and consistency throughout the film. So, and since I went on a high contrast image, even if you look at the theater scene, it's mostly like the background is not that lit. So when I push the shadows a little bit red, it won't look wrong. If it was kind of a little bit universally lit, then I would have had a trouble with the great consistency.
That's amazing. And we also have somebody. How did you how did you manage to myths talks to everybody? Can you discuss the depth about specific colors used to create different moods?
I think most of the colors, I don't think I've changed much. I don't think I've added any tone for any particular scene. That's all costume design and production design. I think the change of period also was costume design and production design. It's just I think I'm getting the credit for it, or the colorist is getting credit for it. It's them. Modest. It's all them. Yeah, no, that is the truth. So, yeah.
That's the spirit. We are all part of a team. So I think MNG sir has quite a few questions to you on how you managed to create this aircraft, and what were you doing with the aircraft. I'll hand you over to him.
Gnanasekaran sir. Sir, are you able to hear me?
No, I think he's just.
Yeah. I know that you are so much fond of always using anamorphic lenses.
Yes, sir.
When using anamorphic lenses, can you tell to the viewers what is the special thing about it?
One, I think it originates from me being I think I love shallow depth of field, even though that might piss off the art directors, that might piss off, all the background work that behind the artist. But I think I love the surreal image that gives. And one of the things is, instead of using, for example, if you're using a 50 mm spherical, and if you want to get that kind of all these images, yeah, all are anamorphic. So yeah, basically the difference is, if you're going to shoot, say about 25 mm spherical, and you wanna kind of get double the width, but maintain the same horizontal space, I would say the anamorphic is what delivers that. And if you want kind of a shallow depth of field with that same focal length, I felt anamorphic kind of delivered that shallow depth of field. So, and the way it kind of squeezes the image and de-squeezes it, and how the bokehs also represent, it's a bit too stretched in the background. So all of those small elements give a little bit of a character to the image. So,
but the shallow depth of field, is not attributed to the squeezing or de-squeezing of the image,
True, of course.
but
Yes,
some other
I'm not-
factors.
Yeah.
Because we can go a bit into technical side also. There will be some more viewers, they may like to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
So other than the compression and decompression, what is the actual elements going to play with giving the shallow depth of field?
That is mostly the focal length. So to get for example, if I've been using a 25 mm in a spherical super 35 lens, and to get that same magnification, I have to use a 50 mm anamorphic lens. So usually when you go higher focal length, you kind of tend to have a lower depth of field. Hence the shallow depth of field. So that's it. That would be my answer.
Full marks to Mr. Niketh Bommi. Question answered. You passed the exam again.
Well, if I taught me well.
No, but you are yet to tell about why focal length need to be increased. When you are going to shoot the spherical lens, if you are going to use a say 50 mm lens, why it becomes 75 mm lens for anamorphic photography?
Because of the way your anamorphic lens sees, it tends to see double the width of a regular lens, maintaining the same vertical space. So that's pretty much it. So to match that field of view, I'll have to go for a higher focal length on an anamorphic.
I think there were some questions related to how you were doing the aircraft, like how did you shoot a shot in a real aircraft? Did you put up a set?
So it was a combination of both. We had one that's extremely expensive to obviously rent an aircraft for an entire day, but Turi was generous enough to give us that opportunity, and we had a Bombardier Q400 for a day, and we had a good landing and takeoff and a couple of taxiing on the runway. So we had few shots. All of this was covered with 5 cameras. And apart from that, all these stunt sequences, we had a proper lorry, and we put up a wireframe, which was exact dimensions of a Bombardier Q400. And this idea was given again by Jackie sir, because initially we thought should we put up an entire wing and we wanted to literally replicate the entire aircraft. He was like, no, not required. And it was a good team effort from the CG team and from art director. They were like, as long as you give us a wireframe and a couple of key points, that's more than enough to put a body on top of it in post.
Oh, so you for the chase sequence with the plane, that you did it with a truck and
we had just one truck, because with an actual aircraft you can't get anywhere close to it. You'll have to shoot from the side.
The propeller will kill you, right?
Yeah, the propeller will kill me, and we won't have permissions. Even if you want to chase the aircraft, even from 50 feet or 100 feet, you're not allowed to get onto the runway for safety standards and regulations. So we had this wireframe put on a lorry, and we were able to get as close as possible. And even one of the fire sequences, the engine is supposed to catch fire. So at that point, we had like thick rubber burnt up with like diesel poured all over it. So we have all the thick smoke coming in. It was all real captured on the camera, and that was a little bit enhanced in post. So.
Yeah, I think we also got a question coming in from one of our viewers about what did you do with the lighting? It sort of says that Sriraj Rajan says in the behind the scenes there's sunlight movement you were capturing inside the aircraft. May I know what was the light setup? So
we had the Q400 parked in the hangar, and we had to cover all the internal sequences, interior sequences, and that involves even the aircraft turning to the left or right. So when you do something like that, obviously your light is supposed to change. And even we went again, if the flight was turning to the right, my camera would go to the left. And we had 3 or 4 HMIs put on different, the cranes. And we kind of synchronized the moment from point A to point B. Yeah, so we did a couple of rehearsals and we got lucky with we were happy with the results.
But it's amazing that you only managed to use a real, plane for a day, and You know, there's so much footage inside it. I don't know, you guys must be really exhausted by the end of that day of shooting.
We did all of, so we rented a theater somewhere outside Chennai, and we had, I think the capacity is, I don't know, 56 seats or 72 seats. So we made all the junior artists sit in all the seats on the left and right, the supporting cast. So we rehearsed the fast taxiing, how they're supposed to react, and the slow taxiing, and the conversations, and them falling here, this side, the camera going through them. So we rehearsed, we had quite a number of rehearsals for, we did it for quite a number of days. And then we went for the actual shoot, because by the time we went for, hangar shots or the interior shots, the per day, the cost to shoot on the runway, usually I think per hour was about 25 grand or something like that. Sorry, in the hangar. And then it bumped up to 2.5 lakhs or something per hour. So we had to be a lot more efficient in terms of planning. So whatever, if we had 3 days of shoot, now it was cut down to 1 day. So we had to pack all of that.
That's pretty amazing, because, so you've done a lot of pre-work. Like you basically got all the junior artists and you rehearsed with them before you actually put them inside the real plane.
Yeah.
That's a lot of superior planning. Yeah.
All hats off to Sudha ma'am and her team.
Yeah, everybody says she's the most organized director they have worked with.
I think I have a lot more to learn from her, and I'm still learning. And yeah, this film is a perfect example.
Amazing. So while you were doing, shooting, I remember MNG sir talking to you about shooting in film and shooting in thing, and there was something that the Roger Deakins mentioned, that when he started shooting in digital, he's able to sleep better. He doesn't think that, oh, what am I going to get in the lab from, So, but what gave you sleepless nights as far as planning for this film is concerned?
I think it's exactly what I mentioned. So even during the climax, so initially we had, I think, 5 days to shoot or 4 days to shoot the climax. And we got this beautiful news of the price being bumped up from thousands to lakhs per hour. And we were already exhausted. And ma'am was like, this is the core, the heart of the film. He achieves what he was trying throughout. He's been beaten to pulp all the way to the end of that 2 hour and 10th minute. And these last 10 or 15 minutes is everything. We have to give it, we have to give the actors the time. We have to give the camera the time. We have to rehearse a number of times. And the lighting consistency, because it's all out in the open. You can't shoot throughout the day. On top of that, we had the weather showed rains. So even that shouldn't kind of creep into the frame. So that was a proper nightmare for me, both, I think, for everyone on set. So every time we had a little bit of a clear sky, we would go back, shoot the wides, shoot the mids, get all of it out of the way. We knew the rains were coming sometime in the next 1 hour. Once the rain started coming in, we would wait, be patient, we would panic inside. Once the rain stopped, go for the close-ups. And sometimes it would drizzle, but then we had to remove it in the post. So that was pretty challenging.
I think so. Your climax was the most difficult thing.
The most. Yep.
Yeah, and so when you worked on a film like this and you knew you're going to have a biopic, is there any kind of film that you saw and say, I'm going to watch this and I'm going to prepare, I'm going to make a film at this kind of grand scale, and this is going to be my lensing style? Were there any kind of films that you studied?
So immediate, this was the same question I even asked ma'am. She didn't want me to go with any reference. She was like, you know what, can we devise some other process to figure out what we need to do, even if the process is very simple, even if it's not that great, can we try out some other process? So I had done something which I did it for my second film, basically picking stuff off childhood. So I would ask her questions about her childhood, how it was, for her, what is the kind of image that is more prominent in her life? And same thing with me, I would discuss it with her. So we had a couple of instances, something which we were able to jam. And we came out with this, you know what? So basically you want the camera to be as personal as possible, right? And she was like, yeah. So, and even the shoulder, the handle shots was not a thing. As in, we really didn't decide on that. Eventually, it came to that decision because we just had to be with the actors. We didn't want to give them marks. We didn't want to tell them what to do. We didn't want to say, you know what, you're going to go from point A to point B, and then from there, pick up a glass, come here, nothing like that. You get to do whatever you want. Do it, we'll capture it. So that was pretty much the approach. And then we figured out the lighting for it. So we would go to the location while doing the recce. We would have the ADs, and all the ADs knew the lines, and they had to know the lines. So they would perform at whatever capacity, and we would get a general idea as to this is what maybe they would do, and I would design the lighting for it. And once the actor comes to the set on the shoot day, they would perform once for my sake, and I would tweak it, and then we would go for the shot.
That's amazing, because that's something that I noticed in your film, that there was a lot of very good handheld operation and beautiful sync with with the actor. And I didn't. Were you using a kind of immobile or a kind of stabilizer rig, or were you just going for a straightforward handheld kind of thing? Oh,
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Straightforward handheld.
I didn't want to go for pretty much handheld, because we considered even gimbals, but the gimbal problem is it kind of hovers. Like, for example, when you go and stop at one particular point, with the handle, you get a little bit of a seesaw effect. That is, the frame goes a little bit up and down. Whereas with the gimbal, it hovers at the same place. It looks a bit fake. It looks like as if you're kind of waiting for something to happen. So it distracts the audience, and you start to notice the camera. So that's pretty much why we went with a complete indie basic handheld setup.
So that's very, you're doing a very big film, but you're still having your indie roots in that. That's remarkable, because there were some sequences where the camera operation, like inside the bakery, the lighting was so beautiful, but you were moving in telephoto sometimes. And what was the F number you were working with? Because there was shallow depth of field, but you were moving on handheld. I mean, your focus puller must have gone mad.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. But that one, we were able to stage it a bit better, because anything which involved a lot of moments where he had to kind of run from outside, come in and grab Bommi and say his lines, and I would go around him. That we staged it once without the actor, with the ADs, and we tell the actors that this is something which we're trying to do. They would pretty much hit the marks. And I think I shot with an exposure of 4. I think that was a bit safe considering anamorphics. So and it's something, when you go full open on this particular lens, you'll never get the right focus. And the lighting was also pretty much straightforward. It was about 3 to 4 HMIs on one side. I had to just see to that I would frame it in such a way, a little bit down, so that I don't see the tip of the light. And I was given a brief that sequence happens sometime between 3:30 and 5:30. And it's a very, usually people say twilight, or people say, afternoon or early morning. But she would say, no, it's between 3:30 and 5:30. So 3:30 and 4:30, figure out the light. Yeah.
So I got a question coming up from Anburaj. He says, did you use a Steadicam in any of the shoot of Surare Portrait?
I think we did for the opening song, because I couldn't really walk on the hills and give a stable image, because the song happens on those mountains and hills. So there are a couple of shots which the Steadicam operator, I wanted a moment of a sweep, not a Jimmy sweep, but a little bit more of a, if I was holding the camera with my hand and just like start walking around the actor, that I wasn't able to do it. We just had the Steadicam on standby, but then I eventually gave up and I was like, nope, that's the device for it. Let's go with the Steadicam.
So there's somebody asking, tell us about breaking the rules in the Udupi hotel sequence.
Oh, that is a mix of both. I think we just got bored shooting on one side of the Udupi hotel, and Jackie sir had put an amazing set even on the other side. And ma'am was like, you know what, this side is so beautiful, why aren't we committing it? And I was like, ma'am, we would be breaking the rule, 180 rule. Are you okay with that? She was like, you know what, I think we have the right thing. Even he's talking about, let's break the convention. So we synced it in such a way that from when he says that line, the camera jumps to the other side. And so it was a, I wouldn't say happy accident, but then it happened because there was a beautiful side to that set.
So you got a question coming from MNG, sir.
I can't hear you, sir.
Okay. There's a question for train sequence. What are things you arranged for the camera movements and lighting? Train sequence, how did you go about?
So
was it a real train or
was,
a set?
So we had one set. We had a train set in Gokulam Studios, I think. So pretty much usually, you know, the train sequences, people don't put a lot of elements like wind, and you know, you don't shake the train and you make the actors do the, you know, the job. But we had packed the train with as many number of people because it's a sleeper class, or it's a, yeah. And we had these huge ass propellers outside. We had about 4 feet or 4 feet propellers run with petrol engines. They were like, there's so much wind gushing in, and that kind of gave the cue even for the actors to be a lot more louder than usual. That's when things started to look more realistic. So it's not just the camera alone. It's just that actors were like, they were trying hard to understand what the other person said. So they would kind of lean forward. And even the other junior artists, the background artists, even they had to do the talking. So they had one entire script for themselves. So even for them to talk, they had to go close to each other, come back. So there was a lot happening with all this, you know, extra elements. So that really helped do that scene. And moment-wise, I kept it pretty much simple. Just put it on the track, a small 1 feet track, 1.5 feet track, which was right between the single-seater and the 3-seater, and did a small track in. That's about it. I didn't do handle there.
What is that gadget actually? It can travel in that very narrow area.
It's a 1,000 rupee gadget. It's just a mini track. That's it. It's pretty much a little bit bigger than a slider. So I can probably put one leg on it and balance and just go on it. So
how about lighting?
Lighting.
How did you manage lighting?
Lighting is, so I didn't want to use anything inside. Because even when during the daytime, inside a train like that, when you have, usually they have the small 2 feet or one small gundu bulb inside the train, that really doesn't give that much of an exposure. Even if you're sitting in a live train, that really doesn't do much, except maybe in the nights. So most of the light is from the outside. And most of the time it's pretty harsh. Even when you try to look at it on a sunny day, you kind of get irritated by the amount of light that comes in. So that's something which we pretty much wanted to create. So every time we looked outside the window, it would be blown out. And we didn't really want to replace it with any background per se. So we just had heavy lights just pumping in, and that's about it.
Next thing, it is very interesting, crash landing sequence.
Yeah.
That actually pictures start with that only. Can you tell sequentially how visuals were actually got? It may involve somewhere some graphics, sometimes actual duplicate version of the flight would have been used.
So that I should thank like many, as in Vijay, who helped me planning this entire sequence, Bharati, who did the storyboard for me, and Deepak Bojraj, who helped me with the VFX supervision, and Vishwas as well. So, so we started off with just the basic storyboard, I think 6 to 7 months before the actual shoot. Then we involved Deepak Bojraj, who was supervising the VFX for us. So we asked him, is this possible? Is this perspective going to be right? Is this kind of lensing can we achieve with this lensing? Will we be able to get the 3D assets for it? So once we got a green light from him, then we moved to the stunt coordinator, stunt choreographer, Greg Powell. So we asked him, like, you know what, this is pretty much the kind of frame. Are you okay with it? Do you think for your choreography, would you want me to change the frame a bit? Do you want me to go back a little bit, show a bit more? Or do you want me to make the movement a bit more dynamic? And once we got the approval from him, then we went with the previs. We sat with the previs with the, the VFX company, the direction department, and the stunt. So once we were all on board, that's when like even Jackie sir came in, and then he told us how he would make that lorry with the wireframe, the Bombardier Q400, and pretty much that was the entire process. So
the entire sequence, what are the elements that were graphically generated, and the items that were actually the models or miniatures?
So we didn't use any miniatures, but we got, they built 3D assets of that flight. And it was fairly easy because Q400 is kind of available everywhere. So, and whatever wireframes we had, whatever we shot with the multicam setup on the runway, we were able to replace that wireframe with an actual 3D asset. So that was fairly simple, but the smoke part of it, the engine fire, that was a bit complicated to replicate because usually particles, dust particles and smoke particles are hardest to kind of animate.
Initially, we could see that Jaws flight, that the hero is going, after completing his talk with that man, it will be turning. How it was done actually? It was layered or?
That was completely 3D generated.
Surya
I know what you mean.
Will fail in the transaction with him.
Yeah. So it's the scene where he tries to convince him about his idea with this thing, Paresh Rawal sir, and he would say, you know what, I want this flight, take this flight back to Chennai, and the flight kind of turns in midair. So that is completely 3D generated. So we initially discussed about shooting something like that in midair, but then obviously the budgets and everything just threw it out of the window, and we went ahead with 3D generated image.
So I think you have a lot of scale going on in your film, and there's a lot of emotion coming through. How much of it did you create, and what was your approach to color grading? You know, do you kind of take stills by yourself, and then do you kind of, can I say, grade it before you go to a grader, or how is your collaboration with your color grading person?
So I use Lightroom. I think Lightroom is my best friend. So after every day shoot, I ask my data wrangler to kind of send PNG images of all my shots somewhere in midway into the shot. So I would take all of those PNG shots and load it onto my Lightroom on my iPad. And I would sit and, kind of desaturate few areas, saturate few areas, bring down the exposure in the background, bring up the face a bit. And I would go with the old fashioned way of a contact sheet. So the film contact sheet. So I'd have all the shots of that one particular scene put as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and see if there is a consistency. So if there is lighting consistency, if there is color consistency, even in terms of costume and in terms of props, which are there in the foreground. So that would be, that would pretty much give me an idea as to what went wrong, where have I like kind of screwed up. So, and when that is easier for me to even present it to the colorist saying, you know what, so this is pretty much my scene. I think these are the areas I'm not happy with. We really need to work. Yeah. So yeah, now the screen share, what they're showing. So this is, I wanted it to look like sodium vapor light coming from the street. And usually if the entire room is pretty dark, that sodium vapor will kind of blow out near the window. That would hit the ceiling mostly, and then the artist's face. So the ceiling is supposed to be brighter. So that's, yeah, this was my
This
approach.
is one of the most beautiful sequences in the film, because it's, it's the birth, but it's just one glow. Everybody else would have got carried away and said that, okay, let me put some shafts inside and things like that. But this is so much of emotion, and there's a birth of a child, yet there is a loss. It's so nice. Yeah.
There is a story behind why I lit this scene this way, because this is supposed to be very emotional for the protagonist, because I think he sees the 6th finger also on the kid, which kind of reminds him of his dad. So I was thinking about what was so personal to me when I was shooting this scene. So I had met, I had met a special person under a sodium vapor light, under a street lamp. So
Wow.
so that was pretty much the approach what I wanted to. So I spoke to the director. I was telling her, can I please light the entire scene with just sodium vapor light coming from the window and nothing else? There's not going to be a single bulb inside. Maybe just to kind of elevate or give me a little bit more exposure, I would kind of put a light in the same direction, but other than that, nothing else. And yeah, that is the result.
So you have some, friends of yours like Shekhar Shetty saying that you're speaking so seriously. Why don't you crack one joke? Something really funny that happened on your shoot?
Something funny on my shoot. I guess the most funny thing is I wouldn't have time to put a track. There is that 3 minutes or 4 minutes to lay a track to get one shot. Even though we have to get the track shot, I wouldn't have it. And that's when came the usage of wheelchairs and the medical wheelchair and the office wheelchair. So yeah, that's pretty much all the jokes we had on set.
There was one of the pictures that we had seen of Aparna setting. You saw the old Madras airport. Is that the old Madras airport, or is it did you cheat somewhere else?
Oh yeah, so that was we got really lucky because when we planned to shoot, there was a good news that the old international airport is going to be taken down, and that was the only piece left to tell the story of a 90s and the exterior of our Chennai International Airport. So we got some special permission. We took our cameras. We took a 2-camera setup. We rolled as much as possible with a zoom lens, with an anamorphic lens, with the full focal lens, trying to get the distortions right at the corners, trying to understand how the airport looked like. And that is pretty much what we used as plates, sometimes as a real image, a real footage as well. So yeah, we got lucky with it.
That's remarkable. So you also documented a piece of Chennai history which is gone now in your camera. That's amazing.
We shot that just I think 4 to 5 days before it was broken down.
Yeah, I said then when you're looking at grading, you were shooting the film to be releasing in a big screen, and then now you were grading and finally finishing your post. You realize your big release is going to be on OTT. Does grading for OTT change your perspective from that of the big screen? Did you worry about? I mean, what's this talk about HDR and all that? I mean, does it influence you?
Definitely, as in there was a lot, because once the announcement was made that it was going to go to OTT, we had already finished the film grade for the theatrical. That is the DCI color space, which can accommodate a lot more colors. And our film, if you look at it, it's pretty saturated, as in even the sodium vapor goes into those deep reds. So sometimes you can miss the shades of reds if it's not done right. And only a DCI color space can kind of show what you have done, the different gradation of blacks, the grays, the whites and the reds. And once we found out that we have to, once we figured out that this is what it's going to be, we are going to release it in the internet medium. It's going to be in the sRGB color space. We had to regrade. We had to look at the film in a very different perspective. We had to bring down the number of colors that's going to be there in single frame. So if it were 10 shades of red, we brought it down to 5 shades of red so that the internet medium can accommodate it. We can't just release the same footage, right? So that was pretty challenging. We had to redo the entire film again.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. Now, when you kind of went through this real slog, and how long did you say you were on this project?
I got into this project, I think June or July 2018. The prep started then, and we started shooting from Feb all the way till September, and we were grading even during lockdown, and yeah, we released it recently.
So, I mean, when you're done with this, and you had fantastic reviews for your work and for the film, and what do you feel now after the film is done? I mean, what's the sense of?
I think OTT release, usually the success of OTT is defined by the social media shares. usually theatrical, you would know like the interval talk, even in the toilet, they'd be like, ah, nice film and stuff like that. You don't have any such reviews coming in. And every reviewer out there are going to have their own perspective. So the only way of telling the film is successful or not, or if it's reached the wider audience, is through social media shares. And I think it did a pretty good round. And that was pretty rewarding for the entire team.
And I think it sort of broke new grounds for OTT in South India. And the response has been fairly unanimous. When you had something like this, there is a certain time that you look back and say, do I want to change something here? Do I want to, are you completely, absolutely slap back? Supposing I give you an opportunity, go back and shoot something. Is there anything you want to like do a change, do something else?
Obviously, this whole film has been brewing for quite some time. And while shooting the film, I don't think I've looked at any other reference. I haven't watched any film. I think for about 1.5 years, I really didn't watch any film. And then lockdown happened. So then I got to watch so much online, and a lot of ideas started pouring in. I was like, okay, maybe I should have staged this way. Maybe I should have done this. Maybe this could have, this is much before the film release, by the way. So I had quite a number of conversations with Sudha ma'am, like, you know what, maybe should we have done this? Should we have done that? And even she would like tell me, you know what, it's done and it's good as it is. Let's leave it there. And yeah, I guess this is a process which every technician, anybody would go through. They would want to do better. So I guess it's a very common thing.
There's a fair bit of questions coming up, from students, to have. Did you have a chance to test shoot during pre-production to get the visual style you wanted?
No, I don't think, because none of the sets were ready. None of the, because I think the look of the film was the costume and the production design. I was merely capturing it. So all I could do was the camera movement and the staging. I could help the director with that. So that was pretty much how we spoke about it and how we wanted to approach the scene as such. But we didn't really, we didn't figure out the tone and look of the film. It happened. And there's
somebody who's asking us a question, Sunil. So could you please tell us the camera settings on Veyon's silly song in Surare Pochu? Because I love those slow motions and movements.
What? I didn't get you. Sorry.
On the song, Veyon's silly song in Surare Pochu. Tell him what the camera settings were.
Oh yeah, Veyon silly. We shot with Phantom. The dance choreographer, he asked us if we can, shoot some slow motions, and we ramp it up and we kind of ramp it to slow, ramp it to fast. So we shot with Phantom, and ma'am wasn't a big fan of extreme high speeds. She wanted something between 250 and 800 frames. So I guess that camera delivered it. And that's pretty much it. We really didn't tweak much other than the frame rate.
So, lot of cinematographers, have a kind of thing that they have a wish list. They kind of dream and say, okay, I'm going to do a great film. I'm going to do this. But eventually when you land up on a film set, there is your technical things that we discussed, your camera, your lighting, all your creative preparation. Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So there's all this preparation that you do, the technical stuff and getting ready and stuff like that. But actually on set, what is the kind of learning that you had, and what would you tell young cinematographers? How is your relationship with the director? What's your relationship with the actors, and what makes you tick on the set?
So I think everyone are going through, like, for example, the director is thinking about the story as a whole. She is trying to think about what we shot before, what is the kind of scene, how it's going to cut to this present scene, what we're going to shoot, how are we going to shoot the next scene. He or she has so much going on in their head, and the actors are kind of in their own zone. They're trying to get into the character. I think you're the only person who, you've done your planning, you've done your staging, you've done your homework, you're getting there, and maybe you might improvise a bit. So I think just having your cool, stay calm, shoot whatever you have to, and keep it simple the most. I think that is something which I would love to tell anybody.
Yeah, there was something that we all heard about the great Steven Spielberg. Spielberg, who was the most successful director at that time, had worked with all the great cameramen, and he had an acrimonious relationship with all of them. Then when Janusz Kaminski came into his life, he said, I felt like I was having my brother on the set. I mean, do you what's your relationship with the director? Is the film is a director's medium, or how do you deal with agreements, disagreements? How do you handle that?
100%, I would say it's her film, and of course we're all team players in it. But it's her vision, it's her film. I'm merely there to just support it and trying to get it out there. I think I've probably done maybe about 60 to 65% justice to what she really envisioned. So, and I think it's a constant process, because it's not just one film. I think you need to collaborate more often to understand the person better. You have to understand their taste better, and that collaboration is everything. It's not something where you can jump from one person to another and trying to figure out. I don't think it works that way. And that's why a lot of Hollywood directors kind of stick to their cinematographers. They grow with them. They probably, even their last film is, their first film and the last film, they would have worked with the same, pretty much the same collaboration.
So what's your advice to young cinematographers? When you...
I would say just keep shooting. As in, of course, assistantship helps. Working on a set helps. You understand the film better. You might understand the dynamics better. But I think the aesthetics, what you want to do, the confidence, everything comes from you shooting stuff on your own. And anything to do with anything small, YouTube video to music videos to big feature films, anything, just keep on shooting. That's the only way you learn the best.
There's something that MNG sir would like to ask you, because it's about that you studying in Film Institute, and then you went abroad and studied. So he has some questions for you.
Yes, sir.
You know that you did not fully complete the course. You started working. Your answer for that, whatever need to be learned, all have been done with Mindscreen itself. You wanted to use half of the time, your visa time, working and learning.
You know what? As soon as I went there, I did something which I think I followed Rajiv sir's footstep. That is, I bought a Steadicam. I went to New York. I saw some old Steadicam on the Tiffin forums. Bought it. I think it's Ultra Sled Pro or something like that. And I started working as a Steadicam operator. And I was not good at it, clearly. I ended up with hernia. But then I learned, how to kind of frame with, such a device. That was a good learning experience, because there were other cinematographers, younger cinematographers, telling me what to do and how they want the frame to be. And here it's something which I need to get their vision right. So that was pretty intense. That was pretty educating for me. And apart from that, I worked as anything like script supervisor to clap boy. So doing all those other jobs was a good learning curve for me. I didn't work as a cinematographer at all. So I was doing everything other than being a cinematographer. So that experience is something which cannot be.
It is perfect. All right. Definitely you have gone to a different area that is definitely going to be useful. All your day-to-day work in the shoot, that would have helped you in this picture also. Now there's a question coming up. Somebody is asking, how did you manage aerial shots?
I think we shot the aerial shots with DJI Inspire 2, which gave us a 6K image. And we had, I think, Micro Four Thirds sensor with the MFT lenses. I think 18mm and 35mm. Those were the two lenses which we used. And we didn't want to cut down on the shutter, so we had small mini NDs put in front of it. So we wanted to maintain 172.8 shutter throughout. the film. We didn't want to, maybe with the high frame rate, maybe, yeah. With anything 48 frames and anything above 24 frames, yes, I can't maintain the same shutter speed. But then for everything else, from stunt, from chase, everything we maintain 172.8. So even the drone, we try to maintain the same settings.
But what was the necessity to keep 172.2.8?
We didn't want it to. So the brief again from Sudha ma'am was, I don't want the stunts to be all over the place. I don't want to be doing I don't want to cut between 12 frames, and I don't want to do within a second. I don't want to show 4 shots. I just want to stay on it, even if it doesn't look great. Whether it looks great, doesn't look great, let's stay on it for about 3 to 4 seconds and then cut to the next one. And if I had cut the shutter a bit more, it would start to look a bit stroby, and it might not cut well with the next shot because I might not shoot with the same settings. So
I was talking about the 172.8, particularly. What difference going to make between 180 and 172.8?
Oh, 180, 172.8. That's
maybe
not
so much. That's what I'm thinking. Huh?
That's probably the 1/50 and 1/48 of a second. So 1/50, it syncs with your refresh rates of your lights. So you don't have a strobe there. But otherwise, with 180, I think you have a little bit of a flicker going up from top to down.
Oh, these are all because of practical lamps there?
We had, quite a number of, even like inside interior of offices, we had like traditional tube lights. So all those tube lights were functioning at the 1/50 refresh rate,
Right, I want to ask one more thing. How many working hands you had from cinematographer side, and how did you divide the works among them? And was there any changes that were happening over the period of entire production? The managing manpower.
How many assistants?
How many assistants you had to support you, and how you divide the work and what type of work they have done?
So I think only one associate, Surya, was allowed to look at the monitor, and there were 3 people under him, and he had to manage those 3 people given particular task as to what has to be done and what shouldn't. And consistency was completely maintained by Regimal Surya. He would work with the gaffer or the chief lighting officer to get, and I would tell him one particular contrast. There is this scene, I want to treat it in this kind of a contrast. See to that you have your light meter. Even if you don't have a light meter, if you want to go with your eye, go ahead. But this is pretty much what I want to do. And see to that your highlights are maintained. Just understand where the highlights are coming from, where's the source. Even if I'm shooting the other way, even if I'm going, around the actor, see to that you maintain it. Even if it tends to look flat, if I go around the actor, let it go flat. So let it look as real as possible. That was the brief given to them.
Excuse me. Yeah. One of the things that was being asked by the groups is that how are you technically prepared when you went to America? And I think MNG briefly touched on this aspect that when you went abroad and you left the course abroad halfway through, after you had completed the Mindscreen course, what was your thought process?
So I think after Mindscreen, I kind of knew how to expose an image. I guess I was a lot more confident before I joined, but I definitely wanted a bit more exposure. I just wanted to see how the world operates, how they would shoot, how they would approach a scene. So that's something which I really wanted to explore, and I thought I would probably get it from a film school there. But again, that film school was teaching me something which I'd already learned back in India, back in MFI. So I thought the best way to learn is by looking at others' work. So, and every cinematographer I worked with had their own unique approach towards, lighting a scene, talking with the director.
Did you just say you kind of learned whatever you had learned in, technically you had to learn, you had already learned in MFI?
100%. I would repeat that again. I've learned everything from here. And everything was taught by Mr. Gnanasekaran sir, you, and
Sridharan sir and everybody behind here
100%.
who are doing it. They feel very happy when they see somebody like you.
I think I've learned so much from Gnanasekaran. Obviously, Gnanasekaran sir taught me the most. And Rajiv sir and Raman sir, Sridharan sir and Neeraj, Guna sir, and everything was a proper learning curve. I think back then even Lightman, Bhupal, and Thangaraj, everyone were there, so everyone had something to teach me. And a couple of them were Ranjit sir would give me the how it would work on set, the dynamics on set. Everyone would give me some insight or the other. So there was a lot to learn, and definitely it helped me be what I am right now.
I think there was somewhere I had heard that you were really keen on shooting. I mean, some corporate films and videos, and was that so? What was your initial interest?
I was never interested in films. I don't think I've watched that many films before. I still haven't watched many films. I just had one small company called Runway 9 Productions with few of my friends, just making corporate videos, promo videos, and I was happy with it. I was very much happy with it. And one thing led to another. Definitely MFI kind of gave me a bit more, because we've had so many screenings here in MFI theaters. So that again, I would kind of Citizen Kane. That is one of the film which definitely showed the process of filmmaking. That's something which is magnificent. So, and then I moved to US. Obviously, saw a lot of music videos being made. There was definitely some spark in it. After I got back, shot my first film. Still, I was not for narrative. My second film had live sound, and I think that's where I started to fall in love with films. Started to fall in love with narrative. Basically, they would give me one live feed. So whatever the artist, so for people who don't know about live sound, it's basically sync sound where you don't have to dub again in post. You get the audio from at your location. You see to that everything is right, so that you get the depth right, you get the dialogues right, and yeah, sync sound is the best. So there was one particular scene where the actor was acting his heart out. The artist was giving his the life type, whatever the performance, and we went for 1 take, 2 takes. Something was missing. Basically, I figured out when he would calm down with his dialogues at one particular stage. He was loud initially, and then he would calm down. And since I had a live feed, I was able to hear his dialogues. And once he calmed down, I was like, you know what, maybe I should kind of go in a bit more. So then when I went in, the boom operator is so good that he saw the frame kind of getting smaller when I went in. So he would get the boom down. That means the audio started getting a little bit louder. So yeah, so once I started going in closer, then I was like, oh, holy damn. So yeah, this is a beautiful process. So I guess that's where I started enjoying film.
Now through this process of your second film, you kind of fell in love with acting. I mean, the quality of the performance and things like that.
Definitely.
What do you feel about screenwriting in India? I mean, and screenwriting courses as such?
I really can't talk much about it because I don't know much, and I haven't attended any of the course. So I'm not the right person to be asked about that question.
The reason I'm telling you, Niketh, is we are actually planning to start a screenwriting course, and
I know.
We're planning to get somebody like Pubali, who wrote Rock On and Kai Poche, to come in and teach that. And we're going to be online. So we want a lot more people, because OTT requires so many writers, and we want to actually start training the next set of writers. So, who knows? So we'll be having some writers coming out of our,
100%. So that would be an interesting program. For sure, I would want to attend something like that, because every time I've never been interested in films to start off with. So now I do. So, once I attend the course, probably you'll never know. Maybe I'm interested in that too.
So we had a great session talking to you. Now we try to find out some people who are actually asking these questions, and if they type out a direct message, then we could actually ask you the question and they could answer. It says in an interview, Surya was mentioning that you had very few lenses. Is there anything?
Oh yeah. So I think, that time Atlas Anamorphics, they had launched only 3 lenses. They had launched 40, 65 and 100. I loved the look of the lens so much that I was ready to take it on. And I think I took the inspiration from the film Pianist. they had shot, I think, only with 35 or a 50 So we tried to do something like that. We wanted to shoot the entire film with 40 but we were forced to go for a few close-ups just to say the story better. So we went for 65, and only one shot, I think, is shot with 100, where the one which you like, where, inside the bakery, they come, Surya sir comes and hugs Bommi character, and that one shot was 100 That's about it.
Amazing.
So, but it did the job. It pretty much did the job.
So there's somebody else asking that, Tarun, he has a question. In recent years, there are plenty of cinematographers. Is it a great career to choose with passion? He's asking.
There are a lot of engineers too. It's just that you like it, you go for it. So I don't think it's a number which matters. I think it's the amount of passion you have for it, and you really want to tell a story. Then this is the field you kind of choose.
Yeah,
this is the closest you can ever get.
Yeah, absolutely. If you go with your heart, and that's all that matters. There's somebody called Anuraj who is asking this question many times. How did you manage to shoot in the top of the steel pillars of the airport scene set in Surat Airport?
I mean, it was nothing complicated. The structures were pretty strong. So I think it could hold a capacity of about 70 people on set. So it was pretty sturdy. So we didn't have any fancy equipment. Only one or two shots were shot on Jimmy with a 24 feet setup. But other than that, everything else is handled. So it was pretty much straightforward.
Yeah. Your experience of shooting the music video on the film and choosing film shot post-processing, MNG sir's guidance to you? When you were shooting film for that, music video, did you happen to call MNG sir or anything like that?
Yep, I forgot everything I learned. So because I had shot so much only with digital, with 5D, with iPhones, nothing with film, and maybe a little bit with my still photography. But then apart from that, I completely forgot how a film camera works. I completely forgot what subtractive theory is. And I had to refresh everything. I had to ask him because I was not confident enough to go ahead with the shoot, even though it's a test shoot, even though it's just 4 cans and just a couple of friends getting together. But then I still wanted to understand how it works. So which other person to ask other than Gnanasekaran sir, who was shot with ISRO, during his ISRO days, he shot with that 4000 lens. He's covered in the most challenging circumstances. So yeah, he told me, just go for it. Don't worry about it. Your film will save you no matter what. It's something which no digital camera can give you. It will give you an image.
Absolutely. So there's Sunil asking you, sir, before joining Mindscreen Institute, what are the knowledge you had about camera and cinematography?
I think I had zero knowledge. I don't think I knew how what a camera. I didn't know that there's something called aperture. I didn't know what shutter means. I was pretty much a dodo before I joined. I had picked something with automatic settings on my DSLR. I could afford a DSLR back then, and I shot it with an automatic setting. I never knew how to use it in a manual setting. All the basics were taught in Mindscreen. Everything I learned from scratch. So that's pretty much boosted my confidence.
Because you said so. There's somebody called Aman S. Dominic who says, hypothetically, if I only had a DSLR without color profiles, which is the best setting to set if we have a luxury to work a lot in the grade? So
I guess neutral settings. So back in the 5D Mark II or 5D Mark III, you're going with neutral settings works the best because I mean, all of these DSLRs, they burn in, there's no metadata as such, right? It's a burnt in image. So you try to bring down the contrast as much as possible. Don't sharpen your image in camera. Try to keep the sharpness to 0. Try to reduce your saturation. Don't reduce it too much. Desaturate it a little bit so that you get the choice to saturate it if you want in post. So that would keep the control down.
Amazing. So I think we had an absolutely fantastic session. MNG, if you have anything to ask, please ask.
So your mic is muted, I think.
Yeah, really, we had a great time to listening to you. That was a person who has been produced by us. So
Sir, but
really, we are.
first of
Tell
all, I
me,
have to
Niketh.
really thank all you people. I mean, Rajiv sir and Gnanasekaran sir and
Yeah,
Saraswati behind the scenes.
our pleasure.
And
Our,
yeah, so
our pleasure is to look forward all our students to come to your position.
uh, sorry, one of your mics have to be muted, I think. So yeah, sorry. So what did you say again?
All our aim will be to look forward all our students to come to a position like you.
Wow! Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
All our best wishes for you for all your future ventures. We'll bring some more laurel to the Mindscreen
Thank you,
Film
sir. But
Institute.
I think I'll have to just say one thing. I mean, about this whole situation about opportunities, because I've got a lot of messages on Instagram asking me, how is it if you pursue cinematography, do you get opportunities? I just think people just have to keep shooting. Just don't stop. Yeah, just keep on shooting. I think the opportunity will appear itself. And being at the right time, right place is everything. And Surya Potra happened for me that way. And it's not like I did some bigger film before. I was a complete nobody. And Sudha ma'am still believed in me, and she gave me such a big opportunity. And I think it's, yeah, put your work out there, and that will fetch you. Everything else will come.
I think from the bottom of my heart, I would like thank a couple of people in this endeavor. Years before, somebody told me that if you start a film institute, you won't make movies, because there was a very, very famous director. He met me in the airport, and after a couple of years, what he told became true. And he met me again after 10 years. He said, "Didn't I tell you, if you start a film institute, you'll never be able to make movies?" And a few years later, he met me and he repeated the same thing again. Everybody who starts a film institute does not make movies, And I said, well, that's true. But one thing, what he said, and he's a very famous director, a very great director, but I had to sort of tell him that Michael Haneke, the great director from Austria, was a teacher. But one of the things that really, moves me as an individual and as a thing is that, we have somebody as talented and as knowledgeable as Gnanasekaran sir, who I learned from, who I got into this place, and now has, run this institution, and we are able to teach and hopefully give this knowledge to so many of you, and who in turn, will teach so many more people. But I think the joy of seeing you today with your success is 10 times more than me actually going and getting an award. I feel happier seeing you get all this recognition. You know what I mean? And the most important aspect that I want to tell you, Niketh, is that what really blew my heart is when I was doing Puttam Pudakale, I was only watching 2 credits. There was Niketh Bommi and Gautam Menon.
Whoa!
You know what I mean? It's such a joy that today what that old man said was not true. I'm still shooting, and you're still shooting, and we are enjoying the process of learning, and we are doing so. It was wonderful seeing your work in Puttam Pudakale, and wonderful seeing you working with Sudha again. And great teams must continue to work, and I hope that you can create a lot more work with Sudha, and you continue to entertain people, and it's an absolute pleasure to see your work. And that's it, man. Just believe in yourself and be as adventurous, as mad, and try as many crazy things, because taking no creative risk is the worst risk you can do. I think it's important to take creative risks and pull it off. And on this wonderful note, I thank all the participants who have listened to this, and I hope You guys have had a great interaction. Any further questions you want, feel free to write to Mindscreen or to the email. We shall try to answer most of your questions. And I think it's an amazing experience to have all of you, Dean sir, as well as Niketh here, and to all the lovers of cinema who have managed to sit and watch the show despite India beating Australia in the Sydney. For us, it's pretty clear that we are absolutely mad about the movies, and we are crazy about films here at Mindscreen. And so wonderful speaking to you, Niketh. Wonderful speaking.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
It was a great evening, and I enjoyed it. Thank you all. Thank you, Fulvi.
Thank you. Go MFI.
May the force be with you, Niketh.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.